people in the gallery here. A bunch of people on the computer as well, calling in remote. So, and I believe most of these folks are going to be contributing to conversation as we go. Time for the open forum. So the open forum, this is a time to discuss or to share your opinion with the council. This is not the budget hearing. The budget and levy hearing will happen later. So if you have something that is separate from that, now is a great time to come and share. Anyone? Come on up.
Dun, dun, dun.
Tell us who you are. Tell us what you want.
Eric Humphrey, city resident, co-owner of Lake Superior Trading Post. And I would just like to speak in support of the HRA and getting more housing for the city and county. I think it's really important, both as a longtime resident, basically lifelong resident, as well as business owner. We've had trouble getting staff, and like many other businesses in town, and I think housing is a big thing. So I hope all of you can do what you can to support more housing.
All right.
Thanks, Eric.
Yep.
You tell us who you are.
I'm Chris Skildum, Cook County resident, builder, member of the HRA.
Chris, could you pull the...
Yeah, totally. So I'm also here in support of any and all housing initiatives. As a builder and developer myself, I can see clearly that it's going to take all kinds to meet the demand for housing in our community. And this is a good start. So I'm here in support of the HRA and Jason Hale doing his thing. That's all I got.
Very cool.
Awesome.
Thank you so very much for that.
You guys should take a cookie. You got to take
Cookies.
You have to have a cookie.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll get one.
Yeah. Anyone else for the open forum?
Oh, it looks like Ann has raised her hand. Just a second here. And you can just unmute yourself and speak when you're ready.
Hi there, Ann Sullivan, and I'm here just to lend my support for the land transfer to the HRA. I have been participating in efforts on working on housing for a couple of years back when we had the Workforce Housing Subcommittee a long time ago. There's other people here on Zoom and in the audience that were part of that as well, but one of the things we really looked at are solutions to our housing. We talked about changes in planning and zoning, working with local contractors and skilled trades, different kinds of funding and financing solutions, and different kinds of partnerships between the city, the county, and other entities. So I just want to thank everybody for their work on this, because it's going to make Cook County a better place to live and to be able to live and reside here in an affordable fashion. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ann.
Thanks, Ann.
Looks like we have a couple more people with their hands raised.
Looks like Mary and Linda, whoever wants to go ahead, just jump in.
Yeah, take turns.
Mary's pointing at me. First of all, I just want to thank Mayor Jay and Councilor Moody for their long extended service. This, I think, might be your last meeting, so hats off to you. Congrats, guys, and much appreciation for all the work you've done on behalf of the city of Grand Marais. I'm also here for the HRA. Jason spoke to visit Cook County at our board retreat last week, and was very compelling presentation. Eric, although he's a business owner, he is also one of the board directors. Thank you, Eric, for being there tonight. We were encouraged with the presentation, and I was encouraged to make sure that I attended this meeting in support of the HRA on behalf of Visit Cook County as the executive director. In addition to that, I just want you all to know, as the Cook County Chamber executive director, we have placed this on our list as a legislative agenda item for this year's session. And as quickly as next week, our lobbyist, Judy Erickson, Mary, Jason, and myself will be having a meeting with the aide from the governor's office. So we are doing our part to keep everything front and center outside of the Cook County border, and we just want to make sure that we are moving forward in true partnership with the city and the county, and everything that Ann says. It's going to take the entire county, not just the village, to get this launched and going. So with that, I just want you to know that both Visit Cook County and the Cook County Chamber of Commerce are very much in support of the work of the HRA. Jason's a rock star, and it's very exciting. And secondly, I just want to give hats off to the Grand Marais Art Colony on, when I was looking at the agenda earlier, and on rethinking how the art festival can look in July. And I think that looks really exciting too. So nice to see something different coming down the road in '23. Thank you.
Thanks, Linda.
Thanks, Linda.
Mary, you're up.
Thank you. Thank you for making arrangements for those of us to stay warm and safe at home and still participate in your meeting tonight. I am Mary Sondas, the chair of the HRA board, and I am, of course, in support of our request to the city council. I have found it, I've worked on housing needs in Cook County for 6 years now, and found it extremely ironic that for the past year we have a full-time dedicated professional with a huge bucket of skills, knowledge, networks, all of the tools to help us move forward. And now we have the challenges, additional challenges of rising costs of construction and interest rates, making it even more difficult to move forward. And I want you to know that I have heard Jason say that free land doesn't enable a project to move forward in and of itself. It requires all the oars in the water, all the pieces of the puzzle have to come together. But without the free land, one corner piece of the puzzle is missing. So I really encourage you to look favorably upon this request and join us in this partnership for the good of the people. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mary.
Thanks, Mary.
Anyone else? Any other comments that were received? All right, so we'll close the open forum and move on with the agenda. So our consent agenda has typical 3 items: this meeting's agenda, the previous meeting minutes, and the payment of bills. It also has the 2023 tobacco license renewals. So there is included in your packet a list of those businesses that have applied for a tobacco license for the year 2023. Unless someone would like to pull something for conversation, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carries. All right. So consent agenda is approved. Moving on to the 2023 budget levy hearing. So in the packet, we do have information regarding what we are proposing for the levy for 2023. The budget and levy hearing is an opportunity for the public to provide comment on these numbers and to also learn about where the city stands on the proposed numbers. So with that said, I'll hand it over to Mike. You can give us a summary of the numbers that are in the packet, and then we will open up for discussion.
I was intending to skip the summary until the end of the meeting since we have so many guests on the agenda. I'd rather just have this time for any folks who want to make comment, and then we can circle back to it.
Fair enough.
That makes sense.
Okay, unless that would engage more conversation, but I feel like that's, I don't see anyone here who's
I don't either.
not on the agenda.
Right.
So,
Anyone online
Okay.
yet?
No one's contacted us and asked to make arrangements to
For that
provide you
reason.
comment.
Okay.
all right, so then.
We miss you, Joyce.
Hearing no comment, then we will, do you want to just delay the hearing till the end, or do you
No,
want
this
to?
is the hearing.
This is the
Now
hearing.
it's over.
And
So
nobody
we're going to
showed.
close the
Move on.
hearing, and then we'll give a budget summary at the end, in item K.
Gotcha.
There we go. So, numbers look pretty good. We'll go with that. Okay, moving right along, Grand Marais Art Colony 2023 Art Festival. In your packet, you will find a proposal from the Arts Festival talking about next July 8th and 9th, moving the Art Colony's Art Festival back into the downtown area using Wisconsin Street and the part of First Avenue closest to the lake. for vendors, and their request is in the packet as seen. So with that said, I will invite Ruth and any other representatives of the Art Colony to share what your vision is, and then we will discuss.
Thank you, Mayor Jay. I am sorry my camera is not turning on, so I apologize. I know it's nice to see faces. If it changes, you'll see me pop up. But I'm Ruth Pizzuaro, Artistic Director at the Art Colony. And many or all of you know, probably the Arts Fest has historically happened in that first full weekend of July. And as we rounded the bend with COVID in 2021 and 2022, we partnered with the schools and hosted the event up in their parking lots. And as you probably know, then what happens when you change a major event location is that you get a lot of input and a lot of feedback, and you rethink things, which is really helpful. So what we did was 2021 was at the school again because of the construction project on Highway 61 plus COVID and wanting to spread out. And 2022, there were a couple of building projects scheduled for downtown. We have to set our schedule for the event by December of the previous year. And so we were not certain what was going to be happening for sure, but understood there was some building going on and just wanting to spread out still for COVID. So those are the reasons we were at the school. And as we continued to evaluate, we did survey artists, volunteers, event attendees, and business sponsors. And then we met with VCC and business leaders and talked through a lot of different options. There's a ton of feedback. One of the main pieces of feedback was that it's a lovely, easy setup at ISD. There's parking up there. There's a lot of pluses. But what we found was that in especially talking with artists, there are lulls up at the school that are not compensated for like they are downtown, when there are people who simply come out of a store and build curiosity around buying or patroning. So when it was quiet, it was really quiet. Wayfinding was another thing to consider, and just that overall sentiment of seeing the harbor itself. So what we took from all of that was that our goals were to spread out the tents, allow for a bit more spaciousness if we were to return to downtown, simplify the setup and the traffic flow. If you remember in the past, when we've been downtown, we turned the one-way by Dairy Queen into a two-way. We had traffic going the wrong direction. It was quite complicated. And we're gonna curate the show a bit more. We're looking at about 60 artists, booths. And for that, we then met with the downtown businesses around where you see that map in the L shape. And so we were able to talk through 3 different options with them. And this was the one that consensus-wise and where we were thinking would be a good fit. People could still drive down Wisconsin Street. They can still exit going back north on First Avenue. So there's this natural flow. There's extra parking that's available down there. Those stores still have people who can park in front of them or near them. Eric has been a key advocate in all of this, and just looking at the space there and then in front of Sievertson's and Blue Water, seemed like the best option for what we were looking for. So we're seeking a permit for the First Avenue portion, and then we'll go to the county regarding Wisconsin Street.
So just a quick question, like we typically have like a permit form, right? Or is this basically all we require for that? I mean, this gives us all the information that we're looking for.
This gives you all the information.
So we can just assume, we will just assume this is the request for permission.
Yep.
Instead of being, sticklers about like, well, you didn't provide the right form. that kind of a thing. So, council, any conversations, questions for Ruth about this proposal, moving things back downtown?
I like that, actually, this layout's pretty smart, I think, as far as traffic flow and allowing people to come down Wisconsin and exit and then still have access on Broadway down to the point. I'd make a motion to support closing off that section of First Avenue West and also providing barriers to block off the corresponding streets and installment of signage over Wisconsin Street for the 32nd Annual Grand Marais Art Festival.
There's a motion, is there a second?
I would second.
Motion and a second, any further discussion?
Just 2 questions, because you mentioned form. When do you block these off to actually start setting up? Is it a day ahead of time or the night before, or?
Yeah, so we set up on that Friday, I think it's the 7th, July 7th this year. And so what typically happens is that morning, we put up the barriers, or the city drops off, or the county drops off the barriers. And then if there's any cars that are parked down there, we have a signage that we plug on there. Talk with business owners in that area to ensure they know that that is our schedule.
So it's actually July, in a sense, just speaking of.
Evening of the
whatever.
7th.
Well, or is it the evening or the full day, Ruth? I didn't catch that.
It's the full day of Friday.
Okay, so Friday will be setup day. It's just fine, I mean, just in a form you'd probably fill.
Yeah,
out.
well, and what we can do too is we can make this, make the motion to support this proposal pending the, clarification of a couple of details.
Yeah,
We
'cause
just
those
gotta make
are-
sure we,
In the past, have been details with other, like fishermen's picnic.
yeah,
kind of thing.
they've been issues in the past at times.
And then the other question is, maybe I just never paid attention before, but your note mentions cement barriers. Is that something different than we've put down before?
We don't have cement barriers.
We don't
Okay,
have
so-
I've already
those.
mentioned that to them.
Okay.
Part of why we put that in, and I anticipated that response, which is fine. It's kind of a weird in between where we like the barriers that you have because we can move them. But we've sat in on some readiness training regarding large-scale events. And if you remember, there's cars that have driven through public events on streets. And so it's mostly, honestly, my way of just flagging that readiness as a city, like what are we considering? And Mike, you talked about that event planning kind of outline from the city perspective, like what's provided to people, what does the city do or not do in relation to events. So mostly just plug that in to say this is kind of a standard as people are going towards larger events. There's problems with it because they're so heavy, but it's the larger question is safety and readiness.
Okay. When I
enough.
noticed that, I thought, well, something different or whatever, but that answers it, thanks.
Yeah, I assume that would probably just be for, the driving cars thing.
I have a question. First Avenue north of the Blue Water going to Highway 61, that's going to remain open?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, so that'll create.
For
like-
traffic flow off of Wisconsin back out to the highway?
Yes.
Okay, we need barricades along the booths then probably by the Blue Water
Yep.
on both sides. Okay.
There'll need to be barricades in a few other areas that are
Right.
indicated on the map.
Yeah, okay.
So there are some details to work out, but in general, we're voting on the, basically the favorable concept of moving the 32nd Art Fest back downtown and making that work, working with the Art Colony to make it work. Any other comments on this?
Just that I expect that at some point, we're going to see the finalized of this, since it's a work in progress, right, Ruth? Is that way to view this?
Absolutely. Yep.
Thanks.
So there'll be some continuing work that you'll do, that you'll be in contact with the city about, and make sure that all of our questions get answered and that all of your needs are clearly spoken so that everyone gets what they want or gets what they need, that kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Yep.
Should we, seems like we've had a time frame before that we would have, like when we have fishermen's.
That was
Seems
like
like-
3 days before Fisherman's.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
but we wanted a little bit more than that. So maybe, I don't know, this is July, so June,
Middle of June.
middle of June to get back to us? Does that work?
Maybe May in case there is anything that needs to be changed. If you wait till 2 weeks before, 3 weeks before, and
Yeah.
there's something you won't have time to alter it or deal with it, maybe.
Yeah, we'll give you a couple months to get the details ironed out. How does that sound, Ruth?
Yeah, that's just fine.
All
Yeah,
right.
that sounds good. So then we'll, as a part of this motion, when it goes through, then we'll have, well, either Ruth, you get in touch with us, or else we'll have somebody get in touch with you. Probably I'd prefer you to get in touch with us with the detail, with more detail about the operations, and then we can make sure that we discuss it and get it all taken care of.
Great, I can follow up.
Okay, so motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Okay, wonderful. Welcome back downtown.
Thanks, Ruth.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Ruth. We look forward to hearing from you about the additional details.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, bye.
Where's the we?
What? Well, what did I say?
We are.
Yeah, who's this "we"?
Use that, use all. See, when I did my blog back in the day, I was always very careful to not say we. I would always say the council, because we always were trying to work as a group. And we also were not just a group of people. We were trying to work as a community as well. Anyway, I digress. Next thing on the agenda.
You're gonna sell that domain name to Tracy so she can take over.
It's
the blog.
expensive. It's expensive stuff. I'm just gonna shut it down.
Taking over Twitter.
Um,
I'm gonna tweet it.
You should see some of the notes, some of the comments on those things. Oof. Anyway, next thing, Fifth Avenue winter parking. Come on up, tell us who you are, and we got a little bit of a summary here about the Fifth Avenue, the slip and slide on the bottom of Fifth Avenue.
Yes.
That we're going to be talking about here as far as parking and plowing. So lay into us. We'll go for it.
Awesome. Well, I hope I won't lay into anybody. For people that I haven't had a chance to meet yet, my name's Robert Hass. I'm the county engineer up here in Cook County. With me is...
Matt Nessheim, I'm the maintenance superintendent for the highways.
There we go. Yeah, like the email stated, we wanted to chat about kind of parking on Fifth Avenue, and, we kind of have a unique scenario up here. The city and the county kind of jointly perform winter maintenance in Grand Marais. The city plows south of 61, the county plows north of 61, just for quick reference. And so, but it is a city ordinance. And so we felt it's a city, on a county road in city limits. We can go on and on about layering and whatever. But since we're all in this together, we felt it appropriate to come forward and just open a discussion, to be honest, and just see what questions or concerns you all might have, or anyone might have for proposing no parking on the lower block of Fifth Avenue. And so that's from, Trunk Highway 61, just up a block. And so it's just that area. We're not talking about the whole road, just that part. Big reason is, the grade of that road is very, very steep. We've all driven on it. And I don't know, Matt, if you want to elaborate any more on that, or?
I mean, we can go into a narrative, but essentially the plow drivers tell me and tell Robbie that as they try to plow down that road, if there's anybody parked on that particular stretch, now there are other stretches too that I could mention, but that particular stretch, as they're plowing along the curb, if there's a car parked there, they have to move with their wing out around that parked car. And sometimes when the conditions are wrong, which is often, the grader typically will actually start to slide towards said parked car. So we figure it's both a public safety issue and then also a equipment damage liability, So.
And our staff safety, obviously.
And staff. Oh, yeah.
So would you be talking from First Street down to
intersection?
61? Where specifically are you
The one
discussing?
block.
Yeah, just that one block.
Okay, just one block, First Street.
But our hope is to align it with an existing ordinance, so there's not layers of city and county ordinances that are confusing. And that's why we're coming to you guys for guidance.
Well, and looking at the way that we wrote the winter plowing ordinance, we wrote it as kind of a blanket ordinance for the city to operate in a specific function. To add another clause to that, we would have to go through drafting and then the ordinance hearings again to change it. But that's not a hard thing to do. So I guess the real question is whether or not the council feels in favor of adding this language to the ordinance. And if they do, then we can have Mike draft it, have it on the next meeting or a future meeting. And then we would need to do first and second hearings of that, and then it would be adopted as a change for ordinance. So that's where we're at. So council, what do you think about that?
Well, I thought about it the other day, and I think I'm right that everyone on that street has off-street parking, right? That would be the main thing.
Is that little
So
house
that's-
right behind,
They have off-street.
that little tiny one, right, the
I
newest
think,
one?
don't they have one right there?
Yeah, they've got
Yeah,
it.
maybe I just.
Oh, yeah,
I was-
So
it's up on
you're
top.
just proposing this for the winter, right?
Just the winter.
And when we say
No,
winter,
You could make it in
November
line, we could make it
15th
easy.
To
and-
April 15th is what our ordinance
Yep.
says.
And just
November
make it line
15th.
up with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We could try and get cute and say when it snows, but I think that just adds a thing.
No,
And so
yeah.
if we just,
let's not do that.
Fire.
yeah, kept everything consistent. Yeah.
And I could add a layer too. One of the reasons we propose actually ending on April 15th is we believe in the summer it's actually not a safety issue as much. Pat Eliason thinks a little differently on that, but there are going to be sidewalks as of next summer down both sides of that street. Did I say street? I meant avenue. So that will aid in pedestrian safety in the summer.
That's,
So, I have a question though. In the reconstruction of Fifth, what's going to be the finished width of that street when it's done compared to what it is now?
Same.
It's going to be the same, okay.
Yeah. the city-
I was concerned it was going to be narrowed up.
Oh,
to
no,
put
I
in the
mean-
sidewalks.
Yeah.
Then
so
we're going to
it's-
have a worse problem when it comes to be wintertime and plowing and moving stuff around up there and so.
Yeah, the city's platted and what we have for that project, is a 66-foot corridor through there.
That stays the same.
That stays the same, that's not changing at all. We know it's tight, and the whole point of that project was to fit everything in there. And so early on in that design of the project, initially, we had driving lanes, parking lanes, a little buffer, and then a sidewalk. But what we did is said, we have such a tight corridor, we don't want to affect people's buildings, fences, whatever, is we put the sidewalk at the back of the the back of the curb. So what that did is it eliminated a lot of temporary easement that we were gonna have to do, which would have infringed upon people's properties a lot. And by doing that, what we did is eliminated it to, I think, 1 or 2 people, and it's like a foot or 2, because we have to put in like a tiny retaining wall. So, yeah.
I think Craig's asking about curb to curb width pavement.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that stays the same.
Basically, yeah, it's 11-foot lanes, I think it's an 8-foot shoulder parking. Right now, it might be a 12-foot lane, you're not gonna notice much of a difference.
how wide are your plows?
Oh, that's a good question.
We weren't prepared for that.
Yeah, I could look it up.
The only reason I ask is because when we were doing the design for Highway 61, they threw a design at us that had driving lanes that were smaller than the plow width. And so we were like, wait a
Plows
minute,
hit once in a while.
that's not gonna work. So anyway, I mean, I believe in you guys. You guys are the engineers. What we're talking about is we're talking about working with you on making this more functional, both for people who are traveling on the roads and also for the staff that are working on the roads. So, any other questions? Otherwise, we'll take the temp here, and then we'll get language.
Well, is this
drafted.
something that we need to work into our language, or is this something that can this be posted in the wintertime, no parking?
Well,
That you
that's
take-
what we
Put signs
wanted.
up and take signs down?
We
Because
wanted
that's a state and county thing,
Totally, yeah, and like I said, it's a county road, we probably could have gone there and put up signs and never
Right.
been here.
Well, no, I'm
But the
just
fact
saying.
that it's a joint, we're doing this winter
Right.
parking ordinance together, this is winter maintenance together, there's already clauses, I believe, in the ordinance that specify no parking in certain areas at certain times, so we felt that this was very much in the avenue of wanting to work it into the ordinance of not only does the road, and we could post it, we very well.
Well, do we
could.
need to put a sign there? Because, this is going to be different, the residential people in Grand Marais know the odd even parking, but people visiting downtown or visiting those businesses might not know that and pull in there and park tomorrow, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm just
So,
trying to
no, and it
educate
might
the
be worth
public.
it, yeah, and it might be worth it for us to post that, I think. And, you know, kind of on the side of that, it'd be interesting to get, and I don't know if this is the forum for it or not, but perspective on signing city streets as well, no parking. Well, if we're talking signs and no parking, it, you know, and we're, you know, talking about doing this together, you know, it's something that, you know, I know that there are signs posted down here, no parking.
Some places.
In some places, yeah, and on the streets north of 61, there aren't, or there's very, very few. And so that's something that I believe, again, we should do together and talk about is if we want consistent signage throughout the city that helps illustrate, you know, the city ordinance that we're all trying to work with. You know, the last thing we want to do is start ticketing and towing cars. It is, no one wants to do that. And the nice thing is we at least live in a place where we can say, oh, hey, that's so-and-so's car. Go knock on their door and be like, move your stuff, you know? But at the end of the day, if it becomes a public safety issue and our staff safety issues where cars aren't moving, you know, we're left with no choice at that point to tow them. I don't want to. That's the last thing I want to do, but, you know, I'm trying to do it. So I think, you know, if it's something about, you know, if we can get it in the ordinance and also, you know, go out and sign Fifth Avenue just in this stretch, you know, I think we can definitely do that.
Well, consistent signage. I mean, like Craig said, that's the spot where you're definitely going to find people who might not be aware, and that would just make
Because
common
they're
sense.
looking for a place to park, close
But-
to the highway.
Yeah. But then in the same vein, why wouldn't you have consistent signage? Like, why'd you post a sign here, but you didn't post a sign over here? Like, okay, yeah. My only other question when we do things like this is this going to draw attention? And you guys, it's your role, right? But most people don't know the difference, right? They're always confused. So when you look at the city, is there some other street that someone would say, hey, why aren't we doing this on this street?
Well, Matt has a list in his head, I think, of other places where that would be
That's a bad
appropriate.
one, I know that.
As far as that road, I think the reason why that's being brought up to attention, obviously, is that it's the most traveled one. Provides a pretty significant risk factor for heavy equipment operators and for people who end up parking there, and the other people who travel there. I know
Come down it.
for me, yeah, exactly. When I found myself coming down there a couple of times, and you know,
What?
you start sliding, and then you look what your options are. It's either I'm going to hit a car, or I'm going to hit a car, or I'm going to go through the
Totally
intersection.
agree with it. I'm just wondering, is someone going to apply the same logic and say, hey, why aren't you considering
danger
this,
zones in this city,
this
I
street here? And I'm just trying to envision, is there something we're missing?
As far as
Doing the same thing somewhere else, or someone asking us, why didn't you do this here? It's just as steep, or, you know, ends up the same thing.
Sure.
But it's a city street, so you guys not be thinking about it. Maybe we should be thinking about
Yeah.
it. That's all. Just-
well, and I think we can certainly have that conversation, and you know, that's the beautiful thing about the authority of the council is that, you know, it is the council's authority to modify ordinances to meet public need.
that's
So-
why I'm bringing it up.
Yeah, but we don't have any input that says anything other than this. This is what we've been
Except
given
what Matt's
input
got.
for, so this is what
So
we're
you
acting
don't-
on.
And I'm broadening it. And you saying.
Yeah, so then give us some examples.
That's what I'm saying, is trying to.
We don't have any input. Like, we don't have any data. Like, what's the data you're asking
These guys
for?
would
Is
pick
there
out
anything
other
just in
problem
general?
areas
Like right away in my
8th
head, I'm
Avenue or
going,
whatever.
you know what, I see that kind of
8th, I
coming
don't
down the
see a
street to the
problem.
post office. And people
This
are
is one
parked
that
on
I've heard
both sides.
consistently since I got
And I
here.
might want to look into that one.
That's because it's gotten worse.
Well, then
because of the
I think we need to look into it then.
parking.
Yeah, that's
Because-
all I'm saying, it's
on the
like, should we make a
highway.
little list and think? I'm not saying right
Can
this
we,
moment make a decision.
can we also address the 61 parking?
Along the curb or what?
Well, last meeting, 2 meetings ago, we were talking about what's happening out on the east
Yeah.
side of town.
Yeah.
There's been conversation, I believe.
Well, it seems better. I'm just wondering if we're gonna
Yeah.
add, because I do remember specific areas called out in our
Yeah.
parking ordinance for the winter parking ordinance. There are definitely areas already highlighted, so it doesn't seem that hard to add a E to whatever if we're at D, to add the right height.
Yeah,
of
here
E.
at G, or H perhaps.
Okay.
Which H was
We got plenty of letters left.
excluding Highway 61 from B
Yeah.
and F.
So,
or something like
yeah,
that.
so that's all. It doesn't seem that hard to add this to it. And especially if the county wants to take responsibility to sign it, then I'd say that's great, because we don't have to pay for it. And then.
And they're plowing.
And then, that's my only point, is if we're gonna add this language per however Chris says it should be written from their input, which seems pretty clear. November 15th, April 15th, First Street down to the highway. Both sides, no parking, right? That's,
I don't think there's any difficulty writing that up.
No.
okay.
No.
So while we're doing that and having a hearing and multiple, whatever it is, 2 hearings or readings or whatever they're called, do we look at either what Tracy's saying and offer suggestions to find other places? Or because the only other place that's been formally discussed at a meeting is long-term parking on the highway, do we also add that in so we can do both readings at the same time and those things are addressed?
So something a little bit more comprehensive and be done with
I'm not
it in a
saying
more
it has to
timely
be,
manner.
I'm basically saying 2 points, Fifth
Yeah.
Avenue West and the highway issue. Unless Matt has a list of other problem areas,
Well, I think to Robbie's point, what we've noticed is not everyone's adhering to the ordinance. And, as the county, we would get a hold of dispatch or the sheriff, and they would go out and try to find the owner of the vehicle. That's sort of the order of operations. So there are other areas that are certainly problematic, and we'd love to have signage that just says, hey, this is the ordinance, this is the side of the street you gotta park on this day. But in terms of the grade of the street, the really problematic, dangerous one is Fifth. I mean, that's just the top of the heap. There's another narrow one that I won't name right now that's problematic for other reasons, but it's not the grade. The grade of Sixth near the Birch is also steep,
Yep.
but you don't have the same amount of parking, traffic, anything, you name it. Fifth is the one.
Yeah.
Well, I think, so what do we got here? Let's find consensus. Do we want to talk about just doing Fifth? Do we want to talk about Fifth and the Highway 61 long-term parking issue, so that we can have ordinance work done on it once? What are we thinking? Anton, it seems like you're in favor of doing both of them at the same time. Or does it not really matter?
Seems to make sense to me. I mean, I'm for sure make a motion that we change the language for our winter parking ordinance to prohibit parking from First Street down to Highway 61 on Fifth Avenue West, both sides of the road. I'll make that motion.
You probably don't need to make a motion on that.
But whatever.
Other
today,
thing,
Since
no.
we'll need to prepare an ordinance for you to.
Yeah, so there would be a motion of support is what it would
Motion
be.
of support then.
Yeah.
So if there's a motion of support for the two changes discussed, so Fifth Avenue, First Street down to the highway, and then long-term parking on Highway 61.
No.
So for those 2 changes, is there a second for that?
I'll second that.
Motion and a second, any further discussion?
It's clear to me what the Fifth Avenue solution is, since it was proposed by these gentlemen here. Are you suggesting that the ordinance should also say there's calendar parking or no parking on Highway 61 during the winter?
Don't we have, just to clarify, don't we have, or didn't we used to have no, that's downtown.
No, we don't have no parking or
There's-
calendar
there's-
parking on Highway 61.
It
So-
used to be downtown, no overnight parking.
I wonder if
Overnight
there aren't
downtown.
completely separate
Yes.
questions that should be handled separately, because this is a done deal and the other one needs some work.
That's
Yeah.
fine. Fine by me.
It's
So
your
then it's your
process,
motion,
I agree.
right?
So you have
Well,
to either,
the things that we're in process with are not ordinance solutions, so you'll be adding that tool to the mix if you want to also talk about an ordinance for Highway 61 parking. And I think it's a great place to have a broader conversation about how to deal with that issue.
and that would be my suggestion. My suggestion would be to handle this one tonight,
Yeah.
get this one moving, and we can do that with just a nod of heads and say, yep, get the language written up. We'll take a look at it in ordinance form at a future meeting, and then starting to have the conversations about solutions for other locations.
Sounds good.
So
That sounds like he accepted your amended motion.
we're going to keep going with the motion then.
Yeah, as amended, I don't care, whatever.
Okay, so you accept the
As
second.
chopped.
You're going to keep seconding that?
I will second it.
Any further
also.
discussion on that?
Or maybe I just have to do half. or one, because he's kind of,
Oh my God.
anyway.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
All right.
Aye. Okay, motion of support. It's good. We'll work on some language, and then we'll start a process of discernment for other places that have issues, and also how we're going to deal with them. What solutions for that would be.
It'll be
Cool.
mid-January before that's done.
It's not gonna snow till.
Yeah, once.
Yeah, it won't snow.
Yeah,
It's
it's
fine.
not, it's done snowing.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks
All
for
right.
coming.
Thank you.
Good meeting.
Thanks for
Thank you.
including us.
Can't
All right,
believe
next
it's
thing.
rain till then.
Oh, God, don't say it. Gross. I want snow. All right, next thing on the agenda, HRA land conveyance. So,
Can we just
we've got-
pass this? Just-
I mean, we can have Jason come up and give us a discussion of what the plan is and what we're talking about. We're looking at the land that is west of Fifth Avenue and east of the Gunflint Trail in a little crescent moon-shaped chunk. And the conveyance for $1 of this to the HRA for the purpose of development of housing. That is what we're looking at. You can jump in and say a little bit more if you want, or if the council wants to just make a motion, then we can be done. But I don't-
How about $1.50? Just,
Shut
You know, with inflation right now, Counselor, I'm not, we might be able to swing $1.50.
all right, just, yeah.
I mean, you presented this earlier,
Yeah.
or is that in another meeting somewhere? I mean, I've heard this,
A couple times.
Twice, yeah.
Yeah.
and in other, yes, okay.
It's really clarification of language, right? Which is quite the Exhibit A, the Torrance and abstract. It's
Yeah,
about
so just a quick recap for council. Sorry, Jason Hale, Executive Director of the HRA, for the record. The conversation at this point was obviously getting the temperature of the council for doing something here and doing this transaction. And then once you voiced your support for it, it was the HRA going back and getting this Alta survey, which took like 3 months to get. And as you're kind of talking about, Councilor Moody, it's quite the legal description, because it's Torrens and abstract properties sandwiched together. It's quite an interesting piece of property, because the Gunflint didn't always go the way that it is. So now that we have the Alta and we have the legal description, we can actually do the property transaction, but we couldn't do anything until we had that. But I'm happy, if you have any questions in particular, I'm happy to address them. Again, we've talked about this for the last several months, I think. It's been a conversation.
Any questions?
Does the council have any need of having having the property back if it's not developed upon?
Yeah, I was wondering is there language?
We can certainly
I
put
was
that in
just
there if you'd
thinking
like to.
about Or
So-
what if, what if the project doesn't move?
Yeah, if you want it back, often what I found is
You know what I'm saying?
some municipalities are like, we don't we don't want it if you take it. We could add, there's some conditions listed in the resolution, and you could amend it to add the resolution if the property is not developed within the next 5 years, the property will revert back to City of Grand Marais.
Conveyance, yeah.
Yep.
Yes, please.
Yeah, that's fine. Frankly, the HRA has no interest in being a property baron and holding something that we're not going to develop. We don't have the resources to maintain something indefinitely. It's not in our interest to do that. We want to do this for specific housing purposes, and if we can't do it in an X amount of time, then we wouldn't want to hold it.
Thanks for that one, Craig.
Okay.
That was important.
Yeah, so this doesn't actually have a resolution number on it. So this is basically just getting the temperature, and we're gonna move forward with a more specific ordinance number and more
this is-
specific language number.
This is
You
supposed
put
to
a
have a
number on it.
resolution on a number on it.
What was that?
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah.
your friendly neighborhood city attorney here. So,
Yeah.
for the council to pass a resolution to convey property, the resolution needs more than what is in this particular draft. There are two statutory issues that are gonna have to be dealt with in the resolution itself. So, if you want to do this, my recommendation would be that you make a motion to direct staff to bring back the paperwork necessary to accomplish this. And the other piece of this that would be included with your resolution would be a deed, and then that deed would
include a right of reverter, which you just talked about. But that's what would need to happen here if you actually want to do this.
And spell check, by the way.
I noticed a couple of that.
Council, is this the first time you're seeing this draft?
No.
Okay. I'm curious, just from the HRA's perspective, this has been drafted for 2 months. And so we're trying to, I wasn't aware that the process was to talk about, we'll do whatever we have to do. If that's the road we have to take, that's totally fine. Just understanding like that that's the process that we have, that there's no other steps we need to do to make sure we can keep moving forward. Because my understanding was that the whole point of having the resolution drafted was so we could actually take an action and do, move forward with the process. So is there anything else that we would need to do on the city side to, if the council is supportive of doing this, aside from what you've outlined there, to have the deed and the revision of the draft?
Mayor and council, I don't know that I'm subject to questions. If the council wants me to answer that question, I will.
Well, you're kind of the guy that we turn to when we have these sorts of inquiries. So
Totally unaware that this was not incomplete, that what we needed. So yeah, I guess we all need to learn what we're missing to make this go.
I thought tonight we were like basically doing this and handing, like this was the thing. Tonight was the night for doing that. That's where I was at, but I obviously don't understand.
I assumed
the
it
documentation
was
needed.
a revision because it didn't have a resolution number and it didn't seem like all the information was here. But that was.
Well, I'd like to address this just for a minute, because it seems like I'm getting thrown under the bus here a little.
No, that's not my intent either. No, not at all.
So
you don't know what's going on.
This was, I have no idea what the council's position is on this.
Oh.
And if the direction was that you wanted to do this, I hadn't heard that yet.
We hadn't made
And that was a discussion that me and the city administrator had related to this.
So it's sort of a chicken and an egg thing? Like, you need to know what we want. We need to, first of all, say yay, and then you can kind of...
Well, the council had never directed.
The process with the land transaction is that conceptually this comes to council. Council will often have a closed session to discuss it, to discuss parameters of how they want the land transaction to be structured. And then typically coming out of that closed session, the direction is motion to direct staff to draft the paperwork, and that could include a purchase agreement. In this case, since this is a government-to-government transaction, it doesn't seem that we need a purchase agreement, and so this can be done more simply with a resolution and a quitclaim deed. But what happens with the resolution, what you are approving, the resolution is not the operative document here. The operative document is to approve the council resolution approving a quitclaim deed, which is attached to the resolution, which then allows you to do the transaction. That's the typical process.
Got it.
Gotcha.
Good. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
Yeah, so what we need is a motion to, if we're in favor of this, a motion to direct staff to prepare the appropriate documents and language to begin that process. So that's where we're at.
Yeah, I would move that we direct staff to do so.
There's a motion. Is there a second for that motion?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Just needless to say, we don't do this very often.
No, it's okay.
So,
and I'm sorry, I just want to make sure we're all on the same page, because we're crossing wires a little bit. So thank you for clarifying what we need to do.
So the legal description was done by?
HRA paid for the Alta survey and the title commitment.
Okay.
Yep.
So then we need to...
And I'm happy to provide that again to whomever,
Right.
whether it's administrator or and he could provide it to council, whatever we need to give.
I don't think we need to do anything with the legal description.
Okay.
No.
Well, you're going to need to do it for the deed conveyance. You need to get to draft the deed presumably with the legal description.
Right, you gave it to us.
Yeah, I was going to say you should have it already.
Two deeds, because this has got to be recorded twice, because it's abstract
And Torrance.
Yep. You got two kinds of land.
Yep.
Okay.
So thank you for working through that with us.
Cool. Any other conversation or any other discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. All right, so we'll get that document, all those documents written up, and we'll get this moving, keep the momentum moving for you on this one.
Thank you, council.
Yep, no problem.
Appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. We need you
Chris.
Sorry for the
so much.
confusion.
Thanks, Chris.
Yeah.
So much.
No problem, guys.
We've got a cookie here for you if you want.
Lots of love.
I'll eat it for you, it's okay.
All right, next thing on the agenda, Resolution 2022-17, Scholz conditional use. So this is an interesting one. So this is a resolution to deny is it a variance? Yeah, variance.
Well, it says
Well,
variance a
conditional.
couple times, but it needs to say conditional.
Conditional
It's a
use.
conditional.
Okay, that's kind of what I was assuming it was a conditional use. Request for denying the Scholz request for conditional use permit. So those of you on the planning and zoning, maybe give us a little bit of a walkthrough on
Good man.
the discussion that went through here, because from what I understand, like viewing this as a denial is not necessarily the entire story of what the conversation was in regards to a potential project on this location. So,
Yeah.
who wants to take it? Who wants to take that one away? I mean, I could also go through the criteria and the
yeah.
findings too, but it seems like
Yeah, I
you
mean,
guys were there.
you saw us there, and I think the biggest things were that, well, why it kept coming back is because it did seem like something that was pretty cool, and it was like, okay, this is really interesting. It seemed like, it could be a good use of that space. It would be nice to see something happen there. So that's what kept it kind of alive and bouncing along for a while. But there are always questions about, well, how will it actually work? Especially, at least for me, it came down to like water. Like, how is this water going to actually flow around, and how is it all going to work in the end? And, pretty much everybody agreed, like, we just couldn't quite see through to that. And also on Terry's side of it, he also didn't bring us quite what we needed to feel comfortable. Like, we really needed something much, and maybe, and Mike pointed out, maybe there would never be anything, but he had to bring us something more than he actually.
More detail?
brought us. More details, but also something like a third party that could say like, yeah, this actually can work or would work if he does all the things he says he's going to do. Because just reading it, it's like, well, that's great. It's really great, but I don't know that it's going to work. And if we're the last people to say yes or no, and it's going to be right in front of everybody when we do it. It's right there. People are going to drive by it all the time. They're going to see it all the time. And, well, you guys will be gone, but we'll be here. So, but you have a much better grasp of more of the mechanics of it, I think, than I do.
Well, yeah, I think he was at 3 meetings, right?
Yeah.
I think it was 3 times that he was there. And the first time, I think, really the conversation was what the impact would be on the hillside, like visually, because that is, now it started to revegetate itself, but when that first was in there, it was quite obvious, like this kind of scar on the side of the hill. And so he addressed, I think that was one of the, by the third meeting, the visual side of it, I feel like was actually pretty well addressed. Like, I feel like how he talked about, placing the buildings, using dark sky compliant lighting, all these things that we were looking for in our comprehensive plan to work right. And even the general theory of what he's trying to do really did, I think, like, hit a lot of those points that we have in our comp plan, with the exception of not actually being able to, like the first one, it was like, it's 23 acres or something, 20 acres.
21.4.
Okay, and, we had the, like, basically cleared out patch is like all we had, like, any drawings, right? Which he's like, well, that's where everything's gonna go. It's like, well, but we'd be passing a conditional use permit for all 20-something acres. So, like, what does that look like and what do you envision? And also, like, you talk about, you know, because he's not going to bring power in, he's not going to bring sewer in, and he's not going to bring, or sewer out, and he's not going to bring water in to the site. So everything is going to be generated on the site. So we said, wow, that sounds really hard. So how is that going to happen? The second meeting, he thought he attached a bunch of stuff. We didn't get any of it. It actually took almost till a week or two before the last meeting to actually get those documents. And when he changed his narrative a little bit to explain more how things were going to work together, like started looking into like electrification and plugging math, like numbers in on like what a hotel person uses per kilowatt hour per stay, and did some math on that. And, you know, but then the rest of it, it wasn't like a full system analysis, like how it all comes together. It was like, oh, here is a company that makes, you know, basically septic treatment, self-contained septic treatment systems, and here's a company that sells insulated heated pipe, and here's a company that sells like wind turbines. And it was like cut sheets, like if you just printed them off the site. But it's like, if you did, I did a little bit of just like simple math on that. You know, one of the things is they're not going to clear any more trees, like it's just going to be what's there. They're hoping to actually revegetate. Well, just off his math, which is only using his like, you know, light switches and running TVs for like hotel guests electrification, like what they use per kilowatt hour. I mean, it was almost 200 solar panels, 75 wind turbines of these turbines that he'd done, which you look at the amount of square footage that would need, what the disturbed area that he had, it just started, and because there was no, it didn't really show how that was all going to work. And it's like, well, then it also doesn't account for the, like, the heat system. I mean, if you run, because it's all bedrock, all of the pipes for both water and sewer are all above ground, suspended underneath these walkways, like it's like in McMurdo in Antarctica, right? But that's got defense contractor money to be able to make that happen. I mean, like, it's a crazy, crazy system, and there's no backup. So it's like whatever the solar can produce into storage and these wind turbines can create, there's no backup. So if there was an issue, I mean, that to me was the biggest holdup. It's like, that's right above our water reservoir and our water tower. You know, if there's some sort of sewer issue and that is like running down the hill, you know, there's supposed to be swimming pools, and I mean, so that it, because, you know, and I think his response to us when we're like, we need more detail, not just like brochures, I think it seemed to be like there was going to be money that was going to have to be put into getting that done. And it's like, well, yes, but if you're going to do this, you're going to have to spend that money anyways. Wouldn't you rather spend that money now and be like, oh God, this isn't going to work, versus buying the land, doing that work, and then realizing, oh God, this isn't going to work. So I think, you know, there had been actually a bunch of like Facebook conversations about it. First, people were like, oh, I can't believe they shut that down. And it's like, okay, but then you actually get into more of the details on why, and then it seemed like, oh, this maybe seems like that idea of like, because they want to use it as like, he wanted to use it as like kind of a teaching stay, right? You could show people how to be able to live more sustainably, which again goes right into our comp plan. But because of the location, because of the ledge rock that exists up there, it's kind of precarious place on the hillside. It just, to me, didn't seem like a, you know, he almost had me like, okay, on that last one, but then it was still like, you know, you start doing the math on it.
It doesn't sound like you said that it was well thought through and analyzed costs. We already know people don't want wind turbines on that hillside. We already went through that.
Well, it's not, they're not talking like, you know, big Vestas, like giant.
Right,
but
They're talking about,
either way, I don't.
they're talking about spinning things on posts.
Yeah, spinning things on posts, which is why you need 75 of them.
Yeah.
To meet, even turning lights on and TVs on, not to like run heat trace through like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of feet of piping.
It's not the space for an experimental sample, show what you can do thing. You need to go find another space to do that.
It could be if they were willing to like make it that, like make it an experiment. But you know, like in order to do that.
Without
the-
information.
That's
I
what
think
I'm saying,
yeah.
is that
Yeah.
what they've been asked 3 times is to provide the actuals for it, and they haven't provided that.
Right.
And so that seems, it seems sketchy. I agree with the planning commission on their take on this.
Yeah.
So council, we have a resolution denying here. We can, well, I mean, our options are to pass this or to not pass this. If we don't pass this, then that puts the planning commission in a bit of a pickle.
It doesn't, actually. You are up against your time limit on this, so no action means approval. So you either pass this or you approve it.
Well, let's
There you
pass
have it.
this.
You mean pass the resolution?
Pass the resolution denying
I'd
it.
make a motion to pass
Resolution.
Resolution 2022-17.
I'll second that.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion on the resolution to deny? Hearing none?
Do we need to read the findings, or?
I hope you did.
No, I know we did, but I'm
I
saying
did.
like out loud.
No.
No,
Okay.
we don't have to legally.
They're on the website if people
Okay.
want to look at them.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Hi.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Okay, thank you for the thorough thought on that. I know sometimes ideas like that are, well, I think it's a really exciting idea, to tell you
Yeah.
the truth. But also, we have a responsibility to protect a lot of different elements of the city there. So, next thing that we have is the ordinance amending the off-sale packaging size requirements that we had our first reading of at our last meeting. This is the second reading, which means that if it is passed at this meeting, then it will become ordinance. So, does anybody have any discussion on this or a feeling towards making a motion to approve the second reading?
I would make a motion to approve the second reading of ordinance 2022-04.
All right, there's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carries. All right, so then you can buy more beer. Budget discussions. Mike, you're up. Talk us through some numbers. We looked at the numbers in the packet. Looks like we were able to, as the numbers came in for the rest of the year, we were able to modify some of the levy numbers, moving the numbers down in the downward fashion, which is always a good sign.
Right.
And where did we end up?
Well, at your last meeting, we talked in a little more detail about how some of the department numbers moved and where they ended up. Since that meeting, there's only really been one other change, and that was the revenue budget for the rec park is back up to 1.5 million. It had been bumped down just a little bit at your last meeting, but it's bumped up. The other change is the special projects line item went from 171 to 175. There's really no magic about either of those numbers, but they do end up giving you a proposed levy increase of 2.76%. We didn't get any hearing comments tonight, and you don't have to take action on this. Matter of fact, you can't at this meeting. If this number looks good, it'll be on a resolution for you to consider in your 10-minute last meeting of December, although it might be a 15-minute meeting now since you're also going to have an ordinance about parking. But if you would like it to be something different, now is the time to talk about it.
I feel satisfied with the number as presented.
Yeah.
I feel like the modifications were kind of what we were anticipating, and also are a sufficient amount of risk to assume for the city's budget for 2023.
Nice job.
Cool.
Yeah.
Fabuloso. So, move on to council and staff reports. Craig, you got anything?
Yes, had a rec park meeting, which we already talked about. All the rec park numbers come in, but anyway, we did, yeah, as far as the rec park numbers, they exceeded budget projections by roughly 9%, so that is what helped a little bit on this budget. Let's see, we're doing, in the new marina, or the new, boat launch area, we're gonna go with a 45-foot dock that's getting made by the DNR, along with a 30-foot dock. Originally, what was projected, and there were two 30-foot docks, but I think we feel that a 45-foot dock is better for when you're launching boats that are 30-foot long. So that's, they'll be hopefully in the water next spring. We had a golf course summary covering the year. Just to recap that a little bit, comparing with 2021, golf course grossed 181,000. This year we did 163,000. But in 2021, we also started 3 weeks earlier because of the weather, so that would be a partial factor with weather. We have seen some increased membership growth since 2019, which is positive. And some of the goals for next year for the golf course is, let's see, what was that? That was on this other page here.
Get your handicap up a little bit. Is it the golf course?
Well, they're still working on a liquor license application to get that additional food options in the clubhouse, improving liquor license, placement of a women's league, and a members tournament and best ball outing is some of the things that they're going to implement next summer. The other thing we talked about at the meeting was a request for proposal that we approved that the rec area revisit the master plan. So we approved to search, ask for a proposal to revisit the master plan, the one that we did back in, what was that?
2009.
2009. So that is getting
expiring.
It's in the works. And we are asking that the proposals be returned by 4 p.m. January 20th of 23. So we'll see what we get for that. We have to have that done and updated so we can move ahead with any type of monies that are out there that we can.
Yeah, legacy funds.
Legacy funds, and to access that. So that was something we're looking at.
It's going to be an interesting process. It always is.
So it's kind of nice to bring that back into the scope again, because after a few years it gets lost, and then we got to revisit it. So other than that, I did have a Parks and Trails meeting last 2 nights ago, but I missed it. I forgot about it. And we haven't had them for a long time, so it's like, oh, dang. But
You know, if there's, on the Parks and Trails, was there ever, like, public, non-government, like, members of that? Are there, like, the people that are on that board, like?
There's, well, the bike trails are represented, the DNR, the state, Snowmobile Club.
Yeah, I thought that there was that, but I wasn't sure if there was just like at-large stuff.
At large?
It's a county board, so
It's
they've established it. It's the county Parks and Trails, and they have invited us to participate.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure.
Yeah,
That's
I
different
can't.
than the Sawtooth Bluff thing?
It's different than the Sawtooth Bluff.
Yes,
thing.
it's different than that.
Okay. Got it.
But Tim usually emails me out a thing, so I'll have it for the next meeting. I can summarize what was talked about. That's pretty much everything I have, I guess, for the park, golf course.
Sweet. Okay, Anton?
I haven't had any. I thought you were gonna say the reason it was gonna be a 15-minute meeting is because you're having some sort of like farewell slideshow for Jay and I. So you're gonna add 5 minutes to the meeting.
Yeah.
Run through all those.
2.5 minutes.
You have to stay.
Best one line.
I'm not coming anyway, so.
Oh, what?
Not till after the
First week
first.
in January, first meeting in January.
Well, no, I don't, yeah, I
The
would
last meeting they
maybe
used, was
have
all
a
about you guys.
EDA update next time, because those are now. No?
Used to be yesterday,
I
and
won't.
now it's not yesterday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't even know what it is. Do we do it already?
Yeah.
Have to find somebody else to pay better attention.
So that's it?
Mm-hmm.
Had my last post-board meeting, we talked a lot about policy again. That's really what the purpose of those meetings have been lately. So that was good. And other than that, I've been, fielding a bunch of different inquiries from people in town. There's a growing group of people in town who would like to discuss with the council the adoption of formal dark sky ordinances to oversee, or to basically allow for Grand Marais to fall into the dark sky categorization. I know that there are a lot of people in town that think that's a really good idea. A lot of people don't understand what it means. This group is interested in coming and doing a presentation for the new council on what that would look like and potential ways forward on that. I know that in the past, I've presented some information on that, although I have to admit that I've never been terribly organized on it, because it seems like it's been kind of a moving target in the past, and that we're doing a lot of things already that help meet those criteria.
Yeah. Do we have anything like that right now? Do we have?
No.
any-
Well, in order to be a dark sky community, you have to have ordinances on the book that in legal language protects the sky.
Okay.
Protects the amount of light pollution. And so this would be something, like we would have to have a citywide lumen limit, for exterior bulbs, and then a requirement for all exterior fixtures to be dark sky compliant, downward facing, and to have either, what do they call it, non-porous, or no, to have porous or light deflecting, non-light deflecting surfaces below downward facing lights. So the idea is that when you're shooting lights down, it should shine onto something that won't bounce the light back up. There's a bunch of mechanisms to make this happen, including creating, like a grace period of a certain amount of time for businesses to comply, creating incentives through the public utilities. There's lots of things you can do to make these things happen. So I do believe that shortly after the first of the year, there will be a group of dark sky community folks coming to the council asking for the ability to do a presentation, to start a conversation. Also, I have an interesting idea for Public Works. This was an idea that came to me from an artist from Duluth who has done a number of murals that celebrate the indigenous populations in the area in Duluth. The idea was to use the north-facing side of the water treatment plant down in the campground, which now faces the parking lot directly, the launch parking lot, to do a mural on that side of the building, and this could be a partnership with Creative Economy Collaborative and also with Grand Portage. A number of organizations could be brought in to do something like this. So that's an interesting idea. I'd like to plant the seed for that. Other than that, I don't have anything. So, Mayor-elect Thompson.
Trying to find my notes here while you were talking, because I think this is one meeting back. I had a meeting with the Active Living Steering Committee. I always make sure I'm saying that correctly. But one of the issues they talked about this last meeting was there is a group of people who, I don't know how collective or organized that is, but people who are interested in seeing that the new Itchigami Bike Trail would be plowed from wherever we stop at the top of the hill, the forestry building, right? Have I got that right?
Right.
and then have a plow down to Rosebush Creek or to the bridge. And they did a lot of their own conversation with that. Bob Nessheim, I believe it was, who's, they've already talked to the state, and the state said, well, it's a 3-season trail, it's designed for that. You already have access to the woods and the wilderness in many other forms all year. So why is this a necessity, which is what's floating around in my head. And maybe if you informally wanted to ski on it anyways, or whatever, ride your bike on it, in the wintertime, why would we want it plowed? And I'm not so sure the state would want us doing that anyways if it maybe isn't designed for that. Maybe we would cause more damage to the trail than, I don't know that, but. So that was a bit of discussion there. And it seemed within the group there was some uncertainty. I'm not really always clear what the criteria is they use when they ask or think about things like that, and who's their intended audience when they do that is a little unclear.
Yeah.
What would be your
I see that.
rationale when you make a choice like this, or want to advocate for something like this?
I think you would definitely get, I mean, if you look at somebody does it, I don't know who, I mean, is Christina Mattson at that?
That is her meeting now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So she sent me some information, because we must have brought it up at one of our meetings, and she sent me some information about that too. And it seems like there needs to be a entity, needs to at least take it on. Like the city could say, we want to take this on, even if the city doesn't want to do it, they could still have another contractor like take that on, because like the township of Tofty, somebody.
They talked about that, and apparently that stretches under something a little bit different. But the state is very adamant that they don't want this done.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I guess I didn't say that very plainly, but yeah, the state's like, no. And you are surrounded by other means to have an outdoor experience.
Yeah.
And so, no, they don't want it. And that's where I'm saying, I don't know, partially because of the materials, maybe getting in there and doing that would be, maybe you screw up your side and your plant growth. I don't know all of it, but I agree with them that there's plenty of other accesses. And if part of it is being out safely walking and getting exercise, you can go into the Y and do that. If you really don't want to be concerned about ice or whatever. And then we keep this whole new walkway going all the way out to go for cabins all the way back and forth if you want to be on a street that is plowed and whatever. So there was no action taken. I think she's doing a temperature check as part of it. And then like you were saying, who would be the entity who would take this and go with it? Anyways, so that was one of the bigger pieces of conversation. And they also talked a little bit about shoulders and more lanes along the Gunflint Trail to get people up to Pincushion outside of driving. And I was a little bit, and since I've only been to a few meetings, I felt like sometimes I'm coming in from the back. There's been discussion I'm not familiar with. But the same thing there, I'm thinking, there are some shoulders, and you can take a path up in the woods to get up there. I'm not really clear then why we need to.
But the pedestrian plan
what's the new?
Has a sidewalk on the south side of the Gunflint
But
Trail.
that's what they were talking
Isn't
about.
the Gunflint Trail
That
supposed to
would
be
be
redone up to the top of the hill?
Well, that
Next
would've
year,
been-
the year after?
That would have been a great question for Robbie. And
Yeah, because that would have been a
heard-
question for those guys,
I
to
have
see
heard and seen-
how they're drawing that up.
Yeah.
That stops at, right by Millsies is where the flag's at. They surveyed that this fall, and you can see where the construction stops. It's maybe right past Dave, what would that be, 3rd Avenue West?
No, but I was told they're gonna repave and redesign the whole Gunflint Trail up to the top of the hill.
Starting at, like, basically the top of 5th, just slightly past, this is, at least from what I saw in surveys and stuff, this fall.
Maybe Kim has some input on this,
Hi,
since she
Kim.
sits on the highway committee.
Oh, good call. Hi, Kim.
Yes, that is on their radar to do in that next project.
Yeah.
And the idea is that they would then pave the south shoulder and make that like a multi-purpose trail kind of access thing that runs from town up to Pincushion. Is that correct? Something
I
like
believe
that?
they were gonna make a bike lane separate and make 2 lanes, I believe, on
It'll be-
up
will-
and down.
Is it gonna be 2 lanes or 3 lanes, or?
It would be a total of 4, so 2 up, 2
Well, it's
down,
gonna turn into 4 lanes.
something like that.
Yep, that's what I.
Okay, with the shoulder.
It's the
Yep,
full.
with a
With a bike lane.
Okay.
The bike lane is the
And not
building
gravel
catch,
like it is
like,
now.
why do we
Yep.
want
Paved, yeah.
People aren't gonna walk up there.
And then that'll take you right to Pincushion.
But are they saying then, so from, once you get past Fifth Avenue on the straight stretch, that our pedestrian plan shows a sidewalk that would go
All the way down.
all the way down and tie in past law enforcement to the new sidewalk that just got put in from the highway to 7. So there's a continuation past law enforcement on the south side, but I don't know when is that part of that project too, or is it just the like upper stretch, like from 5th up towards Pincushion, Kim, on this next?
I haven't seen the whole project. I just know that the bike lane and shoulders paved are on their radar.
Okay.
Okay, well, that's all I had.
Cool. Thank you. Thanks, Kim, for weighing in on that. Michael?
Yeah, and planning and zoning, that's what I had. We did it.
Awesome. You guys, you got anything?
Unfortunately, the Utilities Commission didn't have a quorum for their meeting. If anyone wants to read the packet, it's out there and available to look at. It's got the engineering report to talk about some of the wastewater issues, and hopefully they'll get a chance to dig into that in January.
Yeah.
And I won't be here at your next meeting since I'll be traveling for the holidays.
Cool for you. All right. Well, seeing that we've concluded our business, we will adjourn for the night. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, Chris.